County, which is Walsh Development. It goes south down towards Mira Vista. It's about 44 square miles, about 100,000 people, so a pretty big swath. So if you drive outside 820, most of all that's being developed is District 3, and it will continue to develop. I'll say this about what's going on in Fort Worth. Spoke last week to West Day that does a lot of food distribution. It was their 40th anniversary, and so I put some thought into that. And so in 1985, we had about 450,000 people in the city of Fort Worth. We now have almost 1 million. The number being tossed out that we're 12th, 11th, or really 10th largest city in the United States, probably at this point. So we have all those issues and challenges that every city has. Carlos and I have been briefed on the budget. Bonseal and I just talked about it. That revenues are down this next year. So we're gonna have to make some tough choices on what that looks like in our budget. I think every nonprofit, every business is going through this too with a little bit of the chaos. So we'll see what that looks like on the other side. I think Carlos is going to make some announcements too about the bond later. About the bond, you'll probably see us start talking a lot more about what that is. Our bond would be next May, and any of our regular sort of things, your regular, firefighters, your streets just being, maintained. That's all of the general fund each year. But any major arterials, libraries, police stations, fire stations, that all goes in the bond. So you'll see that package start coming together and start hearing about it more. I would say this: we need community input. There's a lot of ways that, and we'll have some listening sessions. There's been a proposed bond put out there, but that's not the final bond. So there's ways for you even to be interactive. There's QR code. I don't know, did you bring any of those here? But anyway, Carlos can help. We can get that to you, where y'all can submit input for ideas as part of that. Challenges every day that we have here in Fort Worth. Every major urban environment, homelessness. That's probably the most calls that I get that are outside, just streets being torn up, etc. Trash not getting picked up. That's what we do. Make sure your trash gets picked up. Very exciting stuff. And making sure when you call that someone shows up to solve your problem, whatever that is, whether that's code enforcement, police, fire, that sort of thing. That's what we're maintaining every day. I can answer questions. If y'all have questions, happy to answer questions. Anybody? Joanne? Yeah. Do you need this?
Yeah.
Oh, she got one. Okay.
Hello. Is it on?
First button.
Oh. Is it on now?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay, there we go. You probably know me from, can you hear me?
Yes. Well, I can. Here, I'll make these.
Okay. So you probably know me from the business that I run.
Yeah, hold it.
You know. One of the suggestions that I would like to make to the city is that it's very hard to find the city council members' contact information. So I don't know if that's something that y'all can work on in regards to the website, because whether it's a business person or maybe somebody from the community that needs something, it was really, really hard to find their contact information, and I actually had to get it from someone else.
Okay.
And I have one question. So considering that the TEA is considering taking over Fort Worth ISD, and I know that Manny Parker is very vocal about the situation with Fort Worth ISD and their reading numbers, do you have any thoughts in regards to that?
Yeah, sure. First of all, if you want it, everybody, my phone number is 817-677-8258. I share it freely, 817-677-8258. That's my personal phone number. Sorry that you found it hard to find me at some point, but if you just Google me, my phone number, everything's out there. So it's pretty hard to hide, whether that's from the real estate or whatever, it's out there. Obviously, a question about ISD. So I don't know, about 8 months ago, it must have been September timeframe, August, Mayor pulled us into a meeting and said, there's a possibility TEA might take over the city, or take over the ISD. And there's a whole ranking that happens, and it's automatic. If one school performs well, there's a trade-off that's happened. It's very complicated. I didn't understand it, but basically, one school will get a little better, and other schools got worse. And so that's what prompted the letter that was sent, and then the movement that happened at the school district. If you remember at the time, no one was saying fire the superintendent, but it was, if you're going to make a move, you need to make a move and not wait in a year or so. So I'll say this, that from all accounts right now, Dr. Molinar that's in charge is making a lot of right moves. Is it making everybody happy? Not, probably not, but they are looking at cost savings. But ultimately what I want to happen is we get back to the real issues about literacy. Our kids should be reading, they should be just promoted up, and that's what we're seeing. So I think I can say from my district, even probably the worst performing schools, Western Hills Elementary on Las Vegas Trail, we've already seen an uptick in literacy rates. Is it going to take some time? Obviously, yes. And I know Carlos is very involved too. I'll say this, the fourth economic partnership, or education partnership, that's been created, some of the foundations funding it to make sure that we keep an eye on the literacy rates. Is doing amazing work. Pete Guerin and Brett Beasley, proud to work with them in that sense of what they've done for us is put it in a sense that they give us these charts and they're public, you can see them, and as a district, our best performing schools, our worst performing schools. And so we're able to then visualize, and sort of the thought process is, if you have a business that's only succeeding 37% of the time, you have a failing business. And so what are you going to do about it? So you've obviously seen the mayor more vocal, we've been more vocal, more active. I've visited every school in my district over the last couple of years, and it needs to be a priority. It's a priority for us because of the workforce. If you don't have an educated workforce, we can't continue to grow and prosper and attract businesses and jobs and everything else. A good question. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to add to that. You talked about you visit every school, but I'm just speaking in general. Because I support Fortaleza. I support public education. Totally against vouchers and charter schools coming into our neighborhoods. But we also think about the families, dig into their families. We need to touch base with the families because the majority of our students that are in this school district are Latino students, Latino families. They come from homes that speak Spanish only sometimes. So when we're talking about literacy rate, we also need to touch base with their families, not just touch base with schools and go out to the schools, but we need to dig deeper and really dive in and touch the families as well, because it starts also with home. Some of these families don't have the resources and capacity to be able to engage with their kids on the level as in school, or they just don't have the resource, or they have the language barrier. So it goes much more deeper than what meets the eye, in black and white. So I think we also need to talk about families, being involved with the families and being engaged with them.
Good point. The education partnership set up meetings with some of the families in the schools, so that is important too. And there are lots of struggles. I'll say my district too, I've got the best performing schools. I've got Tanglewood and Overton Park that knock off the charts, and I have some of the worst performing schools in Las Vegas Trail, Western Hills Elementary and Primary. So whomever, and I won't do this job forever, whomever is in this job has to be able to go in and out of all those worlds and understand the challenges. I represented Como at one point in time until before redistricting. So this position had to be able to go into all kinds of neighborhoods and be able to connect with all everybody. But I appreciate it, obviously. It starts at home. One of the things I'll comment is reading, etc. starts at home. And that's something I try to impress on people too, with parents, etc. You've got to take that time to read. It may seem very, we all have life and challenges, but that's where it really starts. They are at school a little bit of the day, but they're at home more than they are. They're not, they're asleep, should be asleep, but the reading piece is also helps, so they're ready to come in. The other thing I'll say is keep investing in programs, early education. I don't know how early education became political, but it is at this point. So, but I've spent a lot of time with Child Care Associates, Head Start, etc. My wife works for Child Care Associates, and they run all the Head Start programs here. But kids being ready to learn when they get to school is important. So the earlier we get them, the better too. Yeah. Is that working now? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's my understanding that Nash Elementary is on the list to be closed. Now, Nash Elementary is going to turn 100 years old next year. And from Dr. Molinar, she has said that the district has been in conversation with the city and downtown Enid about that building. I know that's prime real estate, and when I served on the board, I saved that school from being sold to the developer. And so my question is, have y'all been informed, and what is the tie between the city and the school district to do with that building? Because it's on the historical archives. And so nothing, that is sort of a sacred building that shouldn't be turned into apartments or whatnot, because that's the norm now in Fort Worth, is everything turns into an apartment.
The answer is I haven't, it's not in District 3, so I haven't been.
No, I understand that, but as a council member, I'm sure that the council members have been, I would think, have been informed about the possibility of a city takeover of Nash Elementary.
I will tell you, I sat next to Kara Molinar at a Pascal lunch the other day. We didn't talk about school closures or anything. Was at United Way lunch with her. You would think there's probably more information shared, at least here, but there's not. So I can't speak to Nash or what school. I learned about what schools are being closed in the Fort Worth Port. So, I mean, should they? Yes. And I think as it gets to, Carl's not putting you on the spot, but do you have any that you've been told about?
No, I agree with you, Michael. The council has not been briefed on this. It's not in Michael's district, it's not in mine, it's in the council district, not. But the council has not been briefed on any of that.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. I have a question in regards to supporting small businesses and also fighting back against a lot of the gentrification that's happening in our communities. So I live just on the other side, and I'll be very transparent. Like, I see a lot of your signs, the Northern Crane, and as someone who frequents a lot of small businesses, and I don't know if those particular areas were sold or owned by Northern Crane, but talking with community members, a lot of what I've been hearing is that they're being pushed out. Their rent is going up almost 3 times as much. They're being asked for 10% of their business on top of that. And that's the negotiations that they're being pressured under. And many of those businesses off of Ray Street, around Sylvania, North Riverside, all of that are closing. And that's a concern, I think. I think that then makes open opportunities for big developers to come in and push out Latino people, push out brown people, black people, and then increase the prices of housing. We're in a housing crisis as it is. So I would like to know, as someone who is very understanding of that crisis and the experience in the real estate industry, what are you doing? How are you working with Jeanette, Davos, with other people on the council to fight back against the gentrification and pricing out of people in Fort Worth?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. So to be clear, my day job that I don't spend as much time doing, Carlos can commiserate with me on this. I have a real estate brokerage called Northern Crane. We broker property for other people. I don't do that. I do the residential and the property management side. My partner does the commercial side. So those are commercial properties that are up for sale. I don't know which ones. I've seen the signs too. I think there's one close to Child Care Associates headquarters there on the east side. But I'm not involved in any of that. My partner does all that. So they're privately owned, privately sold, etc. To answer your question about housing affordability and affordability overall, I'll say this. I can talk about Las Vegas Trail. It's come to my attention. There are 1,500 empty apartments in that area. So part of them are code issues that they need to be resolved, working with the property owners to get them up to code so people can actually live in them. I think there's another, what I've been told, at least 1,000 or so in the kind of Woodhaven area where there's another cluster of apartments that are empty at this point. So when you're talking about supply, we need more supply of that. I've been very supportive of permanent supportive housing, and other affordable projects in the district. There's one, we took a horrible motel and turned it into, that was human trafficking drugs, and turned it into supportive housing for parents. That helps with the overall crisis. I'll say this, the gentrification part, I'll use Como as an example when I represented them, and I still represent them. I still get calls from everybody in Como with part of this, that they very organized and very outspoken, and you didn't make a move in Como without them letting you know it's okay. So I would say this from that point, the neighborhoods really do have a say in people speaking up, and you doing what you're doing, speaking up about what that looks like, does cause us to listen, I would say, and think about what's happening. Overall comment, Fort Worth is growing. As I said, we're growing in a lot of different ways. So, the small business piece, and I'm proud from the Hispanic Chamber here created the Landsar program, which helps small businesses understand how to do business. That was a grant that I got from the National League of Cities to start that. I think so far they've had about 100 graduates that have gone through the program. It's been in English and Spanish, but that all part of it. So I would say that's kind of a roundabout answer to your question, that it's very complicated in a lot of different ways too. But I'm here to listen, here to help, and if I can educate in some way we can, or be educated, happy to do it. What else? I heard you about shot group. There you go.
I guess kind on what we're talking about, and I'm pretty sure people are interested. The chief of police will be resigning soon, retired. What is the process? What are you looking for specifically in the new chief of police? And how can the community be involved in what steps will be taken to involve?
Chief, we just got briefed last week, and it's very public, it's out there now, the process that will happen. It's going to be an open process. One of the first things with the new city manager, I told him when he came in, was it needed to be a very open process. This person is out in the community, should be out in the community, while at the same time understanding the day-to-day job of what his officers do on the streets. So I think you'll see a lot more. You're right, the police note says resign. He will fully retire at the end of this month. What we got briefed on, it's going to be in June, July, August. Hopefully we'll have someone in place by September, a 4-month process. What I would say is y'all need to be a part of that process. I do know that there are going to be listening sessions where those candidates will be out talking to people, answering questions, and there'll be groups, and there may be some of y'all already invited to be part of those groups. I don't know. We haven't seen the list, but if anybody wants to be part of those groups, let us, like me or Carlos or whatever, know. Happy to make a recommendation to Jay. Ultimately, Jay Chapa, our city manager, makes the call. The city council, we hire and fire 4 people: city manager, city attorney, city auditor, and city secretary. Ultimately, his call. We can make a strong recommendation, but at the end of the day, he has the ultimate call. What am I looking for? I'm looking for, and this has been expressed to Jay as part of the process, again, someone that's open and transparent, someone that I think has led like Noakes has. He understands the outward-facing part of his job, but he also understands the inward-facing of making sure that our officers are taken care of, their families are taken care of, and that we continue to lead a great city. He works well with Monsieur in her office. That's been a priority for me too, as part of this process. Monsieur, I know we'll talk in a second, but she's done a great job of helping us work in the community and understand. I mean, Noakes did a great job of saying this: you're not going to arrest your way out of crime. You've got to have a lot of, and I've seen a shift in the officers that I deal with on the west side of how they deal with people. A recent example from Sergeant Owen, someone, he pulled over someone and they didn't have a car seat, and their child was, instead of writing them a ticket, he went and got them a car seat. And so those kind of things, I think, make a difference. And there's 5 or 10 other stories like that where someone, a kid stole some food. Instead of arresting him and getting a ticket, they went and bought food and figured out what was the issue that he had. So I think you see more of that, where I see, at least those are the stories you get. There's obviously stories you get that are opposite of that. That's the reason your office exists, to solve that. But I think what I see happening overall is that you see good stories coming out of it, or resolutions and firing people if we need to, right? That should be a part of it. But I want someone that's is all the things and understands that the community is important, listening to the community is important, that in the end, he's got to do the right thing for forward. Yes?
Councilmember Crane.
Yes.
I had something I wanted to bring to your attention and
Sure.
ask if you can follow up on for everyone here. So I did go to one of the meetings last week for the Mosaic Public Partners, and they had just launched the survey for the what you're looking for in your next police chief. It has not yet come out in Spanish, and they told me it is in
It
Spanish.
is now. So that was I'm sorry. My name is Alfonso Sotome. I'm the police monitor, and that is something that they immediately rectified. So the survey is now available in Spanish and English, as well as all of the other brochures and documentation.
Okay, can I just add one final thing on that part then? When I did ask them the time frame, they said it was going to be out to community and due back, like they're closing it on May 14th. That is just a few days away. And I feel like that did not give adequate time. If that can be please extended at least another month in order to get through the channels for community, because that's just a few days for people who are Spanish speaking to be able to see that survey and complete it.
So I'm going to steal a little bit of your time. Sorry. So I'm going to speak about the police chief search a little bit in a moment, but I do want to kind of highlight what the survey's purpose is, and I do think the recommendation to extend the time is important, but I want everyone to understand that that is to kind of give the input for what you're looking for in a chief. However, there are going to be additional opportunities for community feedback, and that's really where you want to be in the room and having conversations. That's when your feedback is a little bit more important. This is developing kind of what's going to be considered in the interview process, like what they're putting out there, but the next step when they're having the forums, when they're having the intimate sessions, that's when we need to see the most community engagement. But I have a meeting Monday morning, and I will make sure that I take that back to them, that we should probably at least send it a week. If we take it a month, then we're going to have to push everything back a month, because it's one of those initial documentation things that we're looking for, not necessarily what's going to make up the entire chief process. And it's not going to be the only thing that's considered as far as community engagement.
Thanks, Monsieur. Thanks for bringing that up too. I think that's a reasonable request. And what do you take?
I got it.
Got it. Okay. What else? Okay. Thanks for having me, y'all. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm going to go paint a mural. You didn't know this, that Las Vegas Trail, first of its kind, public-private partnership between JPS and Cook Children's is soon opening. This was going to go into White Settlement north of it. I convinced them to bring it south, right there at the corner of Calmont and Cherry Lane. But no other health center exists like this. And today we're painting a big mural on the side. So I'm going to slip out and go on paint clothes and paint the mural. If anybody wants to come over, you can. It's a group effort, so appreciate it. Thanks y'all for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Prince, for appearing today and answering our questions. Our next speaker is Mr. Garcia, Daniel Garcia. I'm going to go ahead and read his bio. He's FWIC Safety and Security Executive Director. He served as Assistant Chief for the Forward Police Department, where he served for 25 years before retiring. He holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Dallas Baptist University and is a graduate of the FBI National Academy, Class 230 in Quantico, Virginia. And he is a member of the International Association of Chiefs of Police and FBI. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. Again, I'm Daniel Garcia, the Executive Director of Safety and Security for Fort Worth ISD, and I am also a retired Fort Worth Police Department Assistant Chief. So I was retired a few months before I came over to Fort Worth ISD. So I'm really connected to some of the hot topics that are here today from both organizations. But my purpose here today is just to tell you a little bit about my department that I am over currently as the Executive Director at the school district, and that's the Safety and Security Department. There's about 286 people within that department, and I'm going to start out talking about probably one of our most important resources within my department, and that's our school resource officers, right? So we have a great partnership with the City of Fort Worth and Fort Worth ISD and the city for our police officers. We have police officers at all our high schools and middle schools, and we've started adding police officers to our elementaries 2 years now. So there's over 60 police officers, and these men and women do a tremendous job. And I just want to give you a little bit of insight. Obviously, as police officers, they're there to respond to emergencies, right? Active shooter events, critical incidents. But really what they do is really way beyond that. They do a tremendous job every day of being mentors, role models. They get to know these kids. These guys that are, and men and women that are school resource officers, they're there because they really have a passion for working with kids. That's why they're there. Yeah, they're police officers, they're still city employees, they still part of the police department, but their assignment is at school. That's their beat. That's where they report every day. And I have the pleasure of working with them and interacting with them to make sure that they're well suited for a school. I have input into their assignment of their school, help to work out any staffing or personnel issues with the staff at the school that they're working with on a daily basis. But these men and women really do a tremendous job for us because a lot of these kids, that role model, that positive interaction with that police officer is really important to them. A lot of these officers will tell me years later that they may get to know a middle school student, and then years later that child grows up, goes to high school, goes to college, will come back and visit them and tell that officer, hey, you really made a difference in my life. When I got to see you in uniform and what you did, you gave me good advice when I was a kid, you led me in the right direction. I had some challenges going on at home during that time, and really talked to them about the influence that they made on their lives. So that's big, that's important. And that really, that part of it they do every day. Those officers do that every day. You know, they may once in a while respond to a real critical incident, but being a mentor and a role model, they do that every day. So that's really important. So that's the school resource officers. Within my department, as far as civilian staff that work for me, we have safety officers. Safety officers respond to bus accidents, they patrol our bus stops, they respond to school emergencies as well. We have another position called area advisors. These folks are partnered with ESRO, but they're a representative for the district. So if there's an incident going on where something's going on and the police officer's dispatched, then my area advisor will go with them too. That's their partner. If a report needs to be made, they'll make one for the district, the police officer will do their thing. But they work hand in hand with the police officers at the schools. We have security monitors that monitor our extensive camera and alarm systems throughout the district. And we have another position called campus monitors. We have over 200 campus monitors within Fort Worth ISD. These folks are in a uniform, they carry a radio, they're really the eyes and ears for the school. Some of you may know some campus monitors at our schools. Some schools have several because it's a larger school. They make sure the kids get to class, make sure that monitoring, make sure none of our kids leave campus, assist with finding them if they do, keeping intruders out, reporting any kind of incidents that are going on. So again, they're really the eyes and ears for the district. I have some other employees, part of physical security. These are the folks that actually go out and install cameras and access control, the badges so you can get into the schools. So that is some of the positions within the district. So we do a lot related to safety and security at Fort Worth ISD. We also utilize other tools like metal detectors, right? So at Fort Worth ISD, we don't have a metal detector sitting in the entryway of the school every day. Kids don't go through metal detectors every day, but we do metal detector details where a certain amount of classrooms are selected and go through the metal detectors. And on occasion, we do find contraband things, vape pens. There's a lot of vaping in our school, that kind of thing. So we utilize that resource, metal detectors. We also utilize canine, gun and drug protection dogs, like out in our parking lots. All these things we do as an extra layer of safety to help keep our schools safe. But honestly, one of the biggest advantages that we have our culture of safety at Fort Worth ISD is really at a high level. We get a lot of kids that either through Crime Stoppers tip line or directly interacting with a SRO or with an area advisor, these kids share information. And that's really where we find out most of our important information. They'll say, hey, I saw this kid, he had a knife, or he had a gun, whatever the case may be. But the kids are extremely helpful, providing vital information to help keep everybody at that school safe. And then the last part that I'll kind of talk about is, so Uvalde, right, 2023. So life for every school district within Texas really changed after that in the form of state audits, right, requirements that are now in place where we have to have safety film on our glass, we have to have certain fencing, we have to try to add officers at all our schools. There's a lot of requirements. We have auditors now that come out to our schools every day. And they're walking around, checking our schools to make sure they're safe. And so it's changed my life as the executive director over safety and security, right? Every day starts with what's going on with the audit, then our school pass, those kind of issues. So there's a lot of different elements now in place because of what happened in Uvalde in 2023. And I'm really, and I don't know how much you guys kept up with that, but the way the officers are trained here in our city, something like that would never happen, right? That's why we have the officers at our schools that we do. Because if there is an emergency like that, that officer is expected to address that emergency and neutralize that threat. So I think we're in a really good position here in our city and in our district in regard to safety. And I believe that the partnership that we've built with the police department over 30 plus years with the school resource officer program has really enhanced our safety level within our schools. And our kids do a great job. They share information, they provide tips, they're engaged, and really, even though my department is tasked with safety, our superintendent really holds everybody accountable to be part of that shared responsibility for safety. Whether it's a custodian, whether it's a teacher, whatever, everybody has eyes. Everybody makes observations, so everybody can be part of the safety process. So that's kind of a thumbnail about what we do and what safety and security is about, and certainly open it up to any questions anybody might have.
My name is Ortiz, and I am from Uvalde, and I did lose, actually my granddaughter is dating someone who lost a sister, Janine Southside. And a correction, the incident happened May 22nd, 2022, and I was down there with the families. So you mentioned all these positions. Are they communicating? Because that was the issue that we had in the lobby, that no one knew who was in charge. Has that, and I know I've gone to many seminars that they always mention, because of life, because of a community, a Latino community. I went to Rob. My kids went to Rob. So well, just to correct, it was in 2023, it's been 2 years, we're coming on the 30-year anniversary. In your role, are they communicating with all these positions? Are they communicating so that people know who's
So the positions that I described beyond the police officers, these are all civilian school district positions, right? So the actual people that would be responding,
And that was Aguiloso, who was part of the school.
right? He was the police chief.
No.
Okay. Well, it's my understanding that they had their own school district police department, correct? Okay. So in our situation here in Fort Worth, we have the Fort Worth Police Department that provides those services for us. So there's one police department, one unified police department, and having the officers already there is a tremendous advantage because you already have somebody there on site that can respond to that threat. That's a uniformed armed police officer. So the need to call 5 or 6, 7 different agencies wouldn't be there. You see my point? So that communication would be mainly within their own police department.
And we all have the equipment necessary, like when the shooter was active, the fact we did shield.
Yes, the police officers within the school resource unit have all the tools that they need to respond to an active shooter threat. Yes, they do. Yeah, and they train on a regular basis. Yes, sir.
My name is Nestor Martinez. I'm a police officer with Fort Worth Police Department. I'll give you something else that we've kind of implemented. All of our officers in the department have increased their training after this incident, this traumatic event in the state, really. We added alert training, which is basically active shooter training that allocates to about 20 hours additionally with what we have now. So yes, we have kind of increased our training to those type of situations, and we do communicate on a regular basis. And that's required. That's required through our department. That's required through the state. We do have mandates to make sure that the officers participate in that training.
Thank you, Nestor.
Hi, my name is Mia Morales. I'm a senior at Noble Musician Academy. I'm a part of the first LULAC youth chapter. I have a question, and I've been going to organized schools all my life. So when there's a breach in the school, how is it investigated and how do you find out the cause? Especially when you feel like at your school, like the safety isn't there and it's been violated. And for instance, we had an in-house person walking around, roaming our school campus, and I didn't find out about it until it was posted online in a news article from Fort Worth News Report. So I want to ask you, how can you help students not only help them, I guess, understand where y'all are coming from without feeling violated?
Right.
And
Well, so I described to you, right, all the different positions within the district, along with partnership with the police department. So, is keeping people out of our schools every day a challenge? Yeah, it is. It really is. Because honestly, schools were meant to be a pleasant learning environment, right? They weren't designed initially to look or feel like a prison. So there's gaps within there, right? That on occasion, somebody's going to be able to give you. The best thing we can do from there is mitigate by having all these professionals in place, school resource officers, police officers, safety officers, campus monitors, cameras, all these things that we do. Even with all that, not 100%, right? That's why it's so important. I talked about the role that the students play, right? Because you guys are on the floor, on the ground level, you know when somebody doesn't belong or doesn't look right. And luckily for us, a lot of times the students are very engaged and they share that information because they go to somebody they can trust, right? Whether it be the school resource officer, a teacher, a coach, whoever. So that's how the students can be proactive about their own safety, right? They take an active role. I mentioned earlier that safety is a shared responsibility. You know, not just me being the executive director, but you as a student, all of us together. And if we all work together and do our jobs, when there is a breach, like you described, to safety, the chances that we'll identify that trespasser or whatever that breach is, the quicker we get them out, neutralized and gone, it'll go way up if we all work together. Because it's not just one person's job. It's all of us working together. Yes, ma'am.
All right. As a teacher, Officer Simmons is a great officer. And I think our school, our girls, most of them Latinas, have a good connection with her because she's a woman herself. I had two sons at high school, and this is a question about your hall monitors or campus monitors, okay? So when going to pick up one of my sons, the hall monitor knew exactly who my son was, but she told me that some of the Latinos or the Hispanic students, the Spanish students, that's what she said. The Spanish students usually go to the parking lot when there's an assembly. So my question to you is, I know the officers are trained, and I know the officers probably have different type of training than campus monitors. What are you doing to ensure that these campus monitors are really keeping the kids where they need to be, and also not really putting in their what would be their biases or their preconceived notions of our students?
Sure.
To make sure that they are doing, or the kids are where they need to be.
Yeah. So a couple things. So we work really hard to make sure that we have a really diverse staff, right? To start. Secondly, the campus monitors report to the area advisor, right? So an area advisor is assigned to several schools, not just one. But so that's the first step, right? Their first line supervisor monitoring what they're doing, if there's any complaints. So that area advisor will meet daily. He'll try to visit all the campuses that they're in charge of and touch base with the administrators, teachers, principal, assistant principal. And if there's any concerns about a certain campus monitor, then that's how we kind of make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. My question was, do they have any type of training to make sure that they're not making decisions based on their preconceived notions?
Yes. I mean, we provide them training at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. But then it really goes beyond monitoring their behavior, what they're actually doing. And we try to do the best that we can. And we take complaints or concerns from anyone, or you as a parent, if you have a concern, you can reach out, right? Whether it's talking to your principal or emailing me and saying, hey, I have a concern, I kind of feel like maybe something's not right here with this employee. Can you look into it? Can you monitor closer and make sure they're acting appropriately?
I have two questions. Number one, and most important, has there been any communication to the parents to kind of reassure them of all the safety measures that y'all are taking to let them know that their kids are being protected to an extent?
Yeah.
Has that communication gone out to all the parents of the students?
Well, what we do to try to communicate with our parents is, so we have a lot of parents that come up to the schools quite often, right? Whether it be for just meetings, PTA meetings, those kind of things, information on our website that parents can access right on their own. So we usually try to utilize those formats, those PTA meetings, engagement meetings, to try to get the word out about what we're doing. And then from there, just be responsive, right? If I get a call from a parent, and I do pretty much daily, from somebody and saying, hey, what do y'all, how do y'all handle this, or what are y'all doing? You may just want to know some of the resources that we utilize. So yes, we do. We definitely spend a lot of energy trying to get that word out.
My second question is, here recently, HEB had a situation where an elementary school student, middle school, was taken, and now it's become a sex trafficking issue. So what is being done, and I don't know that it would be the responsibility of your department, or it's a combination of the administration at the school and your area. What can be done to make sure that when the students are dropped off, and the parents drop the students off at school, that they're going to where they need to be?
Yeah. Yes.
For fear, because there's a sex trafficking issue that exists in Tarrant County.
Right.
And so what measures are being done?
Yeah, and really I would point back to all the positions, the cameras, the people that I kind of described earlier, whether it be campus monitors, safety officers. Usually staff is assigned to when kids get there in the morning, monitoring them at lunch, and then again at dismissal. So I would just point back to all those resources that we have to make sure that our kids stay safe. And then ultimately, the partnership with the police department and the school resource officers. Fort Worth Police has a human trafficking unit.
So we have a human trafficking unit, and in our curriculum for the year training, one of those specific not requirements, but offered classes is specifically for identification of human trafficking victims, whether it's minors or adults. So that is in our curriculum for the entire training cycle, and officers are being offered that position.
Thank you. I have a two-part question. I guess the common thing right now is communication. And so that is lacking from your department to our communities about communication. So what are the steps that your department is doing with follow-up communication to families when there's an incident and the aftermath of an incident? And I'll give you an example because it is a bad example. Forest Hill Police was involved with the helping situation there's two schools in Forest Hill that are part of Fort Worth ISD. David K. Sellers Elementary had a shooting a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. My parents live across the street from that school. We heard the shooting when it happened. Unfortunately the person passed away. So I was able to alert the principal, the school board trustee, because they didn't even know it happened yet. We heard it. The parents started to write. They were writing. They didn't know what was going on. It was chaos, total chaos. And they still wanted the kids to remain in the school, to go to the school, to finish out the day, which I thought was wrong. The incident happened in the parking lot, not inside the school. And so there was yellow tape everywhere. So it is a traumatic sight for young kids, for elementary kids to see. So it really triggered us, especially in the neighborhood, especially my parents living across the street. And the communication with that was bad, horribly bad to the parents and the community itself. I requested a town hall for the David K. Sellers Elementary community. I didn't get anything. I didn't get no response or anything. So that is one thing that is lacking with Fort Worth ISD, and that aspect. So do y'all have an actual protocol? Because I can never get a straight answer of what is your protocol, what is a follow-up, in communicating to the parents. And the majority of these parents don't speak English, they speak Spanish. So it was very traumatic, very confusing. So that's one question I have. And the other one is, what is your process as for our undocumented parents and their immigration status and keeping that out of our schools and knowing what is the process that those parents need to know as that they are safe, their privacy is protected, and that there is no harm that's going to come to them. How are we communicating that to those communities in every school, and who is your contact person in the school or in your department that we can facilitate those questions and concerns? Because we talk about parent engagement, but there's a majority of our parents that don't want to get involved or can't get involved because they have pushback about, well, you don't have an ID, you don't have a state ID, and you can't participate, you can't go on a field trip. So what is the process of that?
Okay. They gave me a lot there. Some of it, and you know what? Rather than say, well, I'm safety and security, I really can't answer that, I'll do the best that I can to answer it, right? So starting with the incident at the elementary in Forest Hill. I do remember that. It did happen in the parking lot. It was a cafeteria employee. So that was in the city of Forest Hill. And so some of what you talked about was your, I guess, disappointment in the way maybe Forest Hill handled that. So when it comes to, as far as communication and getting word out, right? So Fort Worth ISD has a communication department, so it would be incumbent upon them, right, to put out messages every day when if something happens at a campus that parents need to know about, then the principal works closely with our communication department to put together a message to put out to parents. So that's the protocol that you asked about, that I know about, that I can answer for that particular situation, right? When it comes to your other question about immigration, we received a message, a pretty clear message from our superintendent as far as how we would address those concerns moving forward, right? Because like everybody else, when this first started coming out, that this was happening at other districts, other schools throughout the country, right? Everybody was wondering, well, how are we going to handle it here? So as far as the way we address it here is, our hearts with the kids. Their immigration status really doesn't necessarily matter to us. We want them to be at school, receiving an education. What those law enforcement officials may do, or ICE agents, whatever they do, we don't know yet because it hasn't happened to us yet. But our stance is that the kids need to be in school, they need to keep getting their education, and what their immigration status really is not something that we think is important. It's those kids getting the education that's the important one.
My question is, we live in the right security state, so one of the conversations was our new teachers. What is rotate numbers, and how many teachers are actually carrying this, and do you think that makes a student or a parent actually feel safe? Are new teachers? And is there any kind of training?
Well, here in our district, I'll answer just for us, right? Fort Worth ISD, we don't promote the program of teachers or staff carrying firearms, right? We put all our faith and confidence in our Fort Worth Police Department and our school resource officers, we believe that armed professional law enforcement officers are the way to go, are what we need to take care of our schools. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Our next speaker is Director of Office of Police Officer Oversight Monitor. I'm not going to butcher her name. I'll let her introduce herself as well.
Great. Good morning. My name is Vamsil Shokumbi, and I give grace for everyone with my name because I understand. My maiden name is Thornton, but unfortunately I decided to marry a Nigerian man and make it hard for everyone, so I get it. I am the Director of the Office of the Police Oversight Monitor, and I've had the pleasure of holding this position since September of 2023. Just a little bit on my background to give context how I came into this work and my thought process surrounding this work. I'm a lawyer by training. I spent several years in prosecution in New Orleans, Louisiana. Anything that you've heard about it is true. So I was in the trenches trying cases, and that's where my deep understanding and appreciation for criminal law came from. Unfortunately, I had the opportunity to deal with a large and a great variety of cases, and so I got burnt out. You see enough murders, you see enough rapes, you see enough human trafficking, and you don't want to do that anymore for some people. And so I had the opportunity to transfer into police oversight. I started off there doing community relations. I have a background in PR and things of that nature, and I quickly transitioned to use of force because I have an interest in harm and autopsies and how these things happen and why. And I also have a passion for working with the communities that have been harmed. And so I was able to sit down with families who were suffering those types of harms and explain to them the nuance. Like, I understand your loved one has been killed, but what happened and what is happening with the investigation so we can provide those answers. I was then recruited and selected to be the police monitor for the city of Fort Worth, and I've had the honor of serving in this position ever since. About the police office, the Office of Police Oversight Monitor, let's go OPOM because it's a lot of words for no reason. We are a small staff. We are currently a staff of 7. We were previously a staff of 8, but budget cuts are hard. I'm just going to look you directly in your eye as you think about this budget season. Budget cuts are hard, and unfortunately we had to lose one very crucial position, but we are making do with what we have. What does my office do? We are responsible for a really important thing. The ordinance provides us with the responsibility of helping improve community trust between majority and minority populations and the Fort Worth Police Department. What it doesn't do is say, how exactly are you going to do that? Now, there are thousands upon thousands of police departments across this country, and every oversight agency that you're going to see is different, and we approach it in different ways. So I'm going to tell you a couple of our roles and responsibilities and how I carry it out. Now, I have a responsibility. What I don't have is authority. So I have unfettered access, meaning that anything that happens within Fort Worth Police Department, I can see a file. If there's a shooting right now, if I had my laptop out on me, I could pull up that body-worn camera footage and look at it right now. If a complaint goes into the system that someone filed at 8 o'clock this morning, I can look into the system, I can see that. If there's any interview that is taking place, I can look at that right now. I am able to be everywhere. Where my power comes from is relationship building. It is not that I got a power from city council or from a court that says anything that you say, Bonsil, or someone in your office, they have to do. You know, it is a power of persuasion. It comes from data, it comes from research, and it comes from the words of the community and hearing from the communities that the police department is sworn to protect and serve in what they want to see. What does this look like in practice? The most important thing that I can do for the city is that we are a separate hub that is allowed to take complaints and accommodations for the Fort Worth Police Department. Does anyone know historically where you had to go to file a police complaint before the existence of this office in 2020? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I'm interactive by nature.
On the website?
You had to go on the website, or you had to go to Felix Street to Bob Boland. If it were me, and because I've done this work for a little while, I could understand how that might be a barrier. If you believe that you've been mistreated by the police department, maybe you don't want to go to the police department to tell them that you had a negative interaction. Maybe, I don't know. So we have this lovely office, my office, that's still located at Old City Hall, but I can officially announce, because we have a move date, we are not going to New City Hall. We have made the decision not to go to New City Hall because I want it to be nestled in the community. And I love New City Hall, and it is beautiful. And it is the living room of the city of Fort Worth. But they have marshals, and there's glass buildings, and you have to sign in and say why you're coming there. And anonymity is important to me. Comfort is important to me. Access is important to me. So we're going to the Old Wim School. It's currently the Business Assistance Center off of Rosedale and 35. And so people will be able to come in and file complaints directly with their office. Additionally, you can go on our website, you can send us a message on Instagram, you can call us, you can text in order to file a complaint. One of the important things is you can file a complaint anonymously. Prior to my arrival, that wasn't something that we really did, but I was able to get buy-in from the Fort Worth Police Department, and Chief notes specifically that it doesn't matter if I have a name attached to a complaint. Now, there's some shortcomings with that, and I'll explain it. They want to make sure that they're hearing if there was a negative interaction, so we can either do something about it or learn from it. Now, if someone files a complaint anonymously, that means that there's not going to be an interview with the person, right? And so if we can't look at body-worn camera footage and come to an entire conclusion about the outcome, maybe it's not going to be the same as if I had the name. But that doesn't mean that I can't look at it for patterns and practice and data that is important for that investigation. As it relates to complaints, my office takes complaints. I have 2 policy analysts and everyone in my office, including Ms. Brennigan Contreras, my office manager, my right hand, who is trained to take complaints from community members. We have Spanish-speaking individuals in the office as well to make sure that everyone can be served. They take those complaints, and those complaints are sent to Internal Affairs. We do not have the authority to investigate, but we monitor those complaints. That means as it's going through the process, we're watching to make sure that it's a quality and a thorough investigation. Something that's extremely important to me is providing live monitoring along the way and not just waiting to the end in order to provide our feedback. We monitor those investigations, and once the investigation is completed, it comes back from Internal Affairs to our office for a review. Now, coming on Tuesday, I'll have to make a very public and hard decision, and that is that we have to reduce the number of cases that we're reviewing just because of numbers. And to give you context on what the numbers are looking like, in 2024, there were 2,300-ish, like 2,307 uses of force from the Fort Worth Police Department. Don't be alarmed, for a city this size with the number of officers, that's about appropriate. For the number of complaints, there were 737 internal affairs complaints. I have a staff of 7. I have 2 policy analysts. So we had to figure out how can we triage this and still provide the community with the support it needs. So if you come to my office, if you file a complaint with OPOM, that means that you are going to receive live monitoring throughout the entire process. So we are looking at it. For those people who go to Internal Affairs, we are going on an audit standard essentially. So we're trying to make sure that there's compliance with the quality of investigation at between a 90 and 95% rate. So we have to reduce the number of cases that we're reviewing individually because, let's go through the legal explanation really quick. Because of the meet and confer in Chapter 143, from the date of incident to the conclusion and providing of discipline, there's 180 days. 180 days goes by really quickly. If I keep reviewing every single case, I'll never be impactful in being able to bring back recommendations. I don't want anyone to be nervous. I don't remember which one of my fellow panelists said it earlier. We recognize the same way that you can't arrest yourself out of crime, that you can't actually punish and discipline yourself out of bad behavior. So one of the things that we've started this year, we're in the process of doing, is audits. So not just on the discipline, but all behaviors as it relates to the police department and compliance with their own policies. Because if I can show you that you're doing great, I'm trying to think of one right now, or if you're doing poorly, body-worn cameras, then we can actually just make the recommendation for more training or accountability versus focusing on one officer. We can take a broad stroke and try to address behavior as a whole. Use of force. Use of force is one of the positions, unfortunately, that we had to lose last year during the budget season, and we're putting it forth this year again as a decision package to get that position back. Fortunately, that is where a large area of expertise is for me. And so for our critical police incidents, for our high profile cases, I've been able to keep tabs on that. That was a position that was cut, but we have plans to be able to bring that back again in the future. Something that we launched that is quite impactful for the city. So traditionally, if you go through the complaint process, you would file a complaint, you would wait, and maybe you get a resolution letter for the outcome. And when we talk about complaints, what we're seeing most often is no longer force. That is not our number one complaint, that's the number one allegation. It's the things that fit into rudeness and professionalism. We're not talking about constitutional violations, no illegal searches, things of that nature. I'm not saying they don't occur. That's not what we're seeing most often, and that's great. But rudeness, professionalism, those are the things that can erode the trust of the community. So we developed a community police mediation program, and it has been unbelievably successful. So if someone comes and they file a complaint, either with OPOM or with the police department, and it is screened, and it is only low level, so we're, again, rude. The officer was rude to me. I didn't like his tone. He wasn't professional. I haven't heard from my detective, things of that nature, then it might be eligible for our mediation program. We have 12 community trained mediators. We spent an exorbitant amount of money making sure that they are trained well and able to communicate and reflect those communities that they serve. So we looked at the backgrounds of who we were getting as complainants and tried to match it up, because we know when you have people at the table that look like you, that conversations go farther and further. And we've trained them, and we also have police ambassadors. In order to go through mediation, the community member has to agree, and the police officer has to agree. So that's the importance of having the police ambassador, is someone to tell you, this is not a setup. What do they get out of it? They don't have an investigation, but I just want to tell you the punishment for professionalism and rudeness is so low that it really just doesn't quite matter. But it's beneficial because we're able to have the difficult conversations. When we talk about things like implicit bias, when we talk about our beliefs and the things that we hold internally, it's important to sit down with one another and actually talk that through. So far with this program launching in April of 2024, we have a 100% success rate with officers that participated in the program and community members who have participated in the program. That means we're restoring and rebuilding community trust versus you getting a letter in the mail that tells you there was or there wasn't discipline, and you still harbor the feelings about the police officer. That also means that the police officer had an opportunity to explain to you, I'm sorry, ma'am, I know it might have felt like this, but this is the reason I was operating in the way that I was. These are our policies and procedures. The mediations are confidential, and so we never talk about them. I can speak about them in a grand scheme. We had one that was related, not involving, but related to the perception of force. And it was a individual who identified as a minority and an officer who was not. And there were tears in that mediation, because for the officer was doing something that he had always done. It wasn't against policy, but did not understand how it was being received by the woman who was sitting there and why she was in fear for her safety. That woman could have just walked around the rest of her life believing that the officer wanted to cause her harm or hated her. And then the officer could have thought this was just an irate woman for no reason, but because they were able to sit down and have a clear conversation, we're hoping that we push the needle just a little bit more. As far as our office, so we do monitor all of the complaints, uses of force. We also participate in oral boards. Oral boards are how officers are hired. I sit on every oral board, and I sit on so that's for the recruits and for the laterals. Just last week, we had the opportunity to rewrite those questions to make sure that when we're talking to officers, they were asking quality questions that are going to be able to get out the nuance and conversations to determine, is this an officer that we want to sit as a Fort Worth police officer? I'm also participating in the police chief search. I'm in the small group that is involved in that, and so I've met with Mosaic, I've expressed my concerns and what we'd like to see in our next year, and I do want to let you know, it is extended to May 16th right now, but I will talk to them about an additional period of time for those community engagement surveys. But I want to make sure that everyone is coming out as we're announcing the dates for the community forums and letting their voices be heard for what we are looking for as a police chief. That's a really broad stroke about what we do. Another thing that's extremely important is community engagement. It's being in rooms like this. It's being in any room that will allow us to share what we do. The work is actually a little bit complicated and nuanced, and I don't think the name lends to it, just oversight in general, not the name of my office, for the complexity of the work and reminding people that we do exist. You might not always get the outcome that you want, but please know by using your voice, you're helping empowering change in the future, and that is really what's most important. Community engagement for last year with the staff, we had a fluctuating staff, so I'd say we averaged around 5 members. We did over 100 community engagements last year. We do 2 new ones that I've implemented that are really, really important to me. One is coffee with the OPOM, so I come out to those. We did one at Cafe Azul, I believe, where we just table. I personally buy everyone that comes a coffee if you come and talk to me, and I can just tell you about police oversight. I'm hoping no one has a negative interaction, but if you do or you know someone, at least you're informed and you know where to take that information. And then we also do community office hours. I recognize that we were in Little City Hall and now we're going to be at the Gwen School, but that's not necessarily convenient. I work all day, I have 2 children, I don't have a whole lot of free time, and so we try to go to places, being at our community centers, our libraries, and just set up shop. My staff can just work from there, but trying to be places where people already are, so that they are comfortable to come learn about the office or file a complaint or talk about it. I do want to say, even if you have an interaction and you're not sure, you don't have to know. There is no penalty. The officer is actually not notified unless it warrants an investigation. So come have a conversation. Let's see what is behind the scenes and figure out if it's something that we should do. Going forward, what are we doing? We're trying to do more things, more community engagement, more community forums, and also more proactive relationship building. One of the pilot programs we're hoping to launch this summer is involving youth in policing and trying to build those relationships and repair the ones that are necessary and have these conversations so maybe we don't have the negative interactions in the future. That is supported by the police department. It is sort of supported by the city manager's office as well. So now I will see if anyone has any questions for me. I already knew I was ready. I don't know where the other mic is.
Thank you. My name is also Daniel Garcia, by the way.
All right.
What's up? Tocayo. But my question is kind of connected to the last conversation. When it comes down to the SROs on campuses, what kind of oversight is done with those officers who are on those campuses? And the reason that I say that is because I was a teacher at a Fort Worth ISD school in the east side of Fort Worth. And we had a young black student who was having a mental health crisis on our campus. And instead of being met with de-escalation, and instead of being met with, the school counselor or supporter or an interventionist we have on campus, the officer used force and flipped the student and put them on their back on our campus, and it had detrimental impacts on our students and obviously on that individual student. So what kind of forms of accountability are being done and transparency for our SROs on these campuses? Because obviously in different schools there's different impacts and different experiences with these SROs. And are there any reporting that's being done when there is a use of force used on a school campus? And how can young people also have access to making complaints? How can they do that? Because I think that's critical and important for young people to be able to do that as well, since there are SROs in every single one on campus. Like, can we create any accessible flyers so students know where to call, where to submit a complaint about the experience they have with SROs? Because from what I know, a lot of the students in these black and brown schools, especially also schools like Pascal, where there's clearly a divide between students of color and the white students in those schools. How do we create a process of accountability and trust so our young students of color feel safe? And additionally, the second question is, after the attack on Ms. Jacqueline Craig on the southwest side, and after the horrible death of Tatiana Jefferson, community asked directly for a community police oversight board. We think that your office is critically important and a strong component to address the policy, procedure, budgeting, but community asked for a direct role in this process as well through a community police oversight board. What is the process of that in general? Is that something that your office is recommending as a policy point for City Council to consider? Because the demand and the request was never for a police monitor, but I think the role is important. We're appreciative of it, but we want direct community involvement in this process through a community police oversight board, citizens review board. There's different methods and different forms of it, right? We've researched it for years, but every time community requests it, council just feels like it's not important. So where are we on that? And also, how can we make sure young people have access to also make complaints, since they live in a community, small community where police are?
All right, so I'm gonna go with young people first. So in general, one, that is a fantastic idea about just creating marketing directly connected to our young people. And so I'm gonna take that back, and that's gonna be an initiative that we work on. I have worked quite hard to try to get into the schools, if I'm just gonna be blunt and transparent, about trying to provide know your rights and other information to our children, because one of the dangerous things that's happening right now is that we're informing people based off of their rights off of like TikTok, and I like TikTok, but the rights somewhere else might not be how it actually happens here. And so making sure that they're informed, but increasing the ability to have conversations. The program that I'm speaking about that I'm hoping to launch, and so I'm putting the cart before the horse in this situation, is to have children that are either identified at risk or in majority minority populations be able to have the intimate conversations with officers. There's a pilot program that has been launched in Denver as well as Milwaukee called Bridging the Gap that tries to restore those relationships and rebuild, but is an intense program. The officers have to go through training ahead of time, and then we have trained and involved mediators that are working with the children. About at least 8 children plus at a time. I do find working with children in smaller capacity does increase the retention and also the buy-in, because we're talking about hard things, and we all know how groupthink could work in that situation. So it's something that I care about. We are doing one program, June, I won't get the date for you, but it's in the middle of June, directly targeted towards youth for empowering those conversations. But to be clear, a child can file a complaint. And as it relates to force surrounding SROs, all of that is lumped in together. We do have a plan to try to look just specifically at school policing as a subject matter report in the future. I won't say it's going to happen in 2025, but that is one of the things that we're considering. Now, the community board conversation. It is my understanding, I was not here, and so I'm going to do it based off of the research that I've done, and I've watched all the council hearing meetings. It's my understanding in November 2022 that was voted down. And so that has kind of been the position of where the board has stood. And so I have taken it to try to empower the office to do as much as possible with the resources that we have. If you're asking, Fonso Shokumbi, Director of OPOM, what is your position on a board? My position is if there's going to be a board, it has to be a board that is going to be impactful in the city of Fort Worth. I do think there's a level of nuance that exists in this city, and the laws and the ordinances that we're under, being Chapter 143 specifically, and how it works and what would cause difficulties for the board that might have been desired to actually exist. I think there are ways for a community input that can be impactful, specifically as it relates to policy and things of that nature, but individual incident review, things of that nature, it is difficult, and I would love to have a more more intimate conversation about what it looks like and just the restrictions on my office. That's not coming from council, that's not coming from the city of Fort Worth, just legally what I'm even able to share and how we're navigating transparency, just giving the landscape of how we operate. And so that's kind of where we are. What I do encourage is to continue the commitment and staying in the conversations and supporting the office, because we are small, but we are mighty, and the community voice is the biggest thing. When I started, the hardest part for me, I took the first 6 months of just trying to take meetings with as many people as possible, because what happened and what it felt like happened and what I was being told is that the community was tired and fatigued. And so from November 22 till September 23, it seems like some people may have forgotten, and I don't mean like those who are fighting intimately for the cause. I mean like the larger broad-based community about oversight, and we don't want to lose what we do have, I mean OPOM, because we didn't get everything that we wanted. But I do respect the frustration of that fight and respect everyone who was involved in it. I hope I answered your question.
And your office should definitely be adequately funded. So hopefully in this next budget cycle, council folks who are in the office, you get the funding that you deserve and need to do an extremely difficult and challenging job, because community, you can't get buy-in from community if your office isn't adequately funded. You know what I'm saying? But I appreciate your response, and of course, like, know your rights for students is critical and important, and more accessibility to make complaints is important. So I'm glad it's already on top of your mind, and I'm excited to work with you in that process.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had kind of 2 questions as well. So the first question was, I know that there are resources that come out of the office. Again, also gonna say, believe it should be adequately funded, so y'all can be able to continue providing that information. But what is the future looking like for possibly a live dashboard for the information that you named, all of the statistics around the incidents, around the follow-up and all of it? What does that look like? What is the time frame? I think that's another way you can put, that access, like making it more accessible to people, right? So that way they are fully aware of what the purpose and efficiency of the office is. And then second question is, what is continued follow-up after complaints have been investigated, have been resolved, and something's been put into action? Because I do know of an incident last year in which I helped someone file a complaint in which there was use of force. Also, some of their property was stolen and it was never recovered. So and unfortunately that's essentially what was told, was we couldn't find your property at any of the locations in which possibly the officers had taken that to. So it's just gone. Wanted to know, what does that continued follow-up look like? And are there statistics on incidents like that where the resolution could not become, there was not a proper resolution that was come to? Because you said it's 100% success rate between officers and community partners who have come into that's, come to meet at the table to work towards a resolution. What about the other folks who maybe walked away and didn't have a resolution?
So I would say, okay, I'm going to try to remember all the questions. Let's start with the dashboard. Funding, and I don't want to say that I'm giving excuses, but we're doing what we can with the resources that we have, understanding the strain that the city is under. So one of the things that I started was monthly reporting, and so if you go to our website, and we're working on getting everything translated, let me just go ahead and put that out there. Our annual reports and things of that nature are translated, but every month we produce a monthly report and publish it on our website so that we know all the interactions of our office and everything that is happening in that way. We are in the process of securing a company called Civil to assist us with being able to provide that information, not necessarily in a live format, but in a closer to real time, and where you're not having to look at every independent PDF. By the June, we anticipate having an annual report that encompasses 2023 and 2024 issued to give context to that. The live dashboard is a goal, but it is just extremely expensive, and also the complexity of Chapter 143, I know I keep saying it, but the complexity of Chapter 143 and things that have to remain confidential between A file and G file brings a level of difficulty to the live dashboard as it relates to complaints. Not just things that are happening, but individual complaints. But it is something that is on the radar that we have talked about and I envision having in the future. Second question was related to, I'm sorry.
Just what is the follow-up look
Follow-up,
like
okay. So the follow-up for my office, once a complaint is filed, analysts are instructed to reach out at least twice a month regularly, and we provide resolution letters at the end of whatever the interaction is with an explanation. If the resolution is not what would have been expected, that is explained, and we still stay in regular contact. On a regular basis, we have people coming back to talk to us. If it did not come through my office, it does not have that same level of follow-up. So if it went through internal affairs, that individual will get a resolution letter. That individual is supposed to get a resolution letter, and that's basically the end of it. If there are questions or comments or concerns, then I'm happy to have someone contact our office and we can look into it to a higher degree. I actually don't know off the top of my head. I don't believe that we've ever measured the satisfaction rate with the internal affairs process. I can tell you without a doubt that there are more cases that are found to be exonerated or not sustained than you would find cases that have been sustained. It is something that we're looking at, and also what we're trying to divide out is the difference between public complaints that are filed and those that are filed internally, and what the sustainment rate was for those individual cases. Does that answer your questions?
Hello. Yes, I'm Alberto Gobea, President of LULAC, Council 4568. First of all, I want to thank you for what you and your staff do. It's greatly appreciated and needed. However, I am disappointed, having been involved in trying to set up the Citizens Oversight Committee. It really didn't happen when other major cities, most major cities, in fact, have that. And in fact, some of them even have investigative powers. So my question to you is, why do you think it failed? I think the city voted against it. I don't know, Carlos, you're here, maybe you can answer that. And so I'd like to get a response from you, maybe Carlos as well. In addition, I just want to make one more comment to our LULAC District Board. I hope that we can work together in advocating to have a citizens board, because it's greatly needed in Fort Worth. And again, if other cities have it, why don't we? Thank you.
So again, the vote happened prior to my arrival. The vote was November 2022, and so I wasn't present. I watched the vote, and I believe that there's probably more expertise that would like to speak to that directly about what happened and specifically why it went down. What I can say again on the technicality aspects of like why I don't have investigatory power is the meet and confer contract that we're under between the POA and the city of Fort Worth does not allow for me to have investigatory power. That is one thing, and that also through Chapter 143. Additionally, with rendering discipline, the only person that can render discipline is also the chief of police, and so those are like limitations that would not allow me to be able to do that as it exists right now. What happened in November 22 prior to my arrival, I can pass the microphone for that if you would like.
And due to time constraints, we only have enough time for one more question now.
I'll try to be brief. Thank you for that question, however. If you go back to November, in front of the council, one recommendation was made, and it started out as an advisory board. Then during the course of the meeting, it went to review board. And then by the end of the meeting, it went to oversight. A lot of the council members were unclear about what the respective powers or duties or authorities under those three versions would be, because they're not the same. So that's what caused us to say, we're going to keep with what we put in place, OPOM, because by that time, OPOM had not been in practice for very long. The reason council opted for that, and I think this is where a lot of people may forget, the recommendation for the Race and Culture Task Force was to put in place some form of oversight, either as a board or some other method. So the council opted for that latter part. The other method, OPOM, resulted from that. Does that answer your question? We can talk later. Yes, sir.
Kind of, sort of, but I understand. But I guess I hope you understand. We're going to continue pushing for that if we can.
That's fine. Yeah, and I'm perfectly happy to talk to you about that.
All right, thank you.
Last question.
I do have a question. With City of Fort Worth, there's a population of 35% Latino. What is your experience in working with the Latino community and Spanish-speaking community members? Have you been in office in your position since 2023? So if council members are not inviting you to their district, suggestion is you go out there and speak with community leaders and engage yourself with community members. My other part of the question is, how are you handling complaints about police officers that are racially profiling Latinos or acting as ICE agents? And how are community members feeling, I guess, safe, or how are you encouraging community members to file those complaints that, have been racially profiled? And, there's been incidents. City of Fort Worth, regardless of what people say, that they're not, there has been incidents with City of Fort Worth, or whether it's Tarrant County government, are being involved with ICE raids. I mean, a couple of months ago, that did happen in the east side of Fort Worth. And so, I'm just wondering what information is being put out there, what communication is being put out there to community members, because as much as we want to say that we should report our undocumented community should make reports about if they don't feel unsafe, they're not going to make it when they don't really feel safe at all with law enforcement.
Absolutely, and so even before it became another current concern, that was something that I cared about deeply because of experiences in law enforcement and how that happens. That is the number one reason why we went to anonymous complaints, is to provide that level of anonymity to people that are filing. And also, you can also do a third-party complaint. So if I do have citizenship and I'm aware of something, I can file on someone else's behalf. What I do recognize is that might not be enough. And so we know that there's underreporting from disadvantaged populations, period, point blank. But we're trying to get the information that we can. We also have the option of just sharing the information with us that might not turn into a complaint for fear of retaliation. I can provide the resources that I can, but I can't actually protect someone. I don't have the authority to do that, and I'm not going to lie to someone about that. We have increased our visibility in Spanish-speaking populations just point blank this year to try to make sure that people are aware of the services that we're providing. Last year we did go with every council member and did the tour of basically what OPOM is, remind them, and try to tailor those speeches to what's happening specifically in that council district or either policing division so that they're aware of it. We are spending more time trying to team up. I have a community engagement specialist who reaches out and tries to team up with individuals and focuses. So what her overall arching goal is, we do events, and she has a number, it doesn't matter, but events across the entire city. But there's a separate goal for majority minority populations to make sure that we're engaging with them specifically. What is surprising, and I'm not saying it didn't happen because data can be faulty, what is surprising is I haven't had anything related to immigration coming through my office. Nothing. But what I did notice is that I've had an underreporting of race. What I have noticed is that I have more anonymous complaints coming in. But what I would like to urge is for those of us that operate in a point of privilege to say something, to take that opportunity to say something. Because if things are happening and people aren't aware of it, there's very little that I can do about it. And again, there are 737 complaints that were filed last year. 2,300, and put a number there, uses of force. There's no way for us to stay on top of all of it, but if it's something comes directly to me or through my doors, we're able to give it individualized attention. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Garcia, Mr. Craig, at this point, if anyone has any announcements, feel free.
Okay, a couple of announcements. Like Michael was referring to,